The sky was dark, filled with smoke and fire. Alien buildings were broken, and streets were full of dust. Everyone was running, screaming, trying to escape the bombing ships above. But one girl was not running. She couldn't. Her name was Thala. She lay near a broken wall, her thin arms trying to drag her body forward. Her legs weak and useless hung behind her like heavy ropes. She was born that way. No one ever knew why, and no one ever cared to help her. As a child, her family kept her hidden. "Don't let the neighbors see her," her father used to say. "People will think we're cursed," so she spent most of her life inside a small metal room, watching the world through a tiny window. But now even that world was gone. Her family had run away when the bombs started. They didn't even look back. She was left behind, just like an old, broken machine. Still, Thala didn't cry. She had no tears left, only a sharp will inside her heart. "I won't die here," she whispered. "Not like this." She pulled herself forward, inch by inch, her elbows bleeding, her clothes torn, her small bag tied too. Her shoulder only had one thing, a drawing she made years ago. It was a picture of her standing tall, arms wide, smiling under a bright sky. It was a dream, nothing more. But it gave her something to keep going. The sound of engines grew louder. A black warship hovered above the city. Laser fire rained down, burning the ground. One bolt struck nearby. Boom. She was thrown against the wall, her vision going blurry. She coughed, her face covered in ash. Then, from the smoke, a shadow appeared. A tall figure, wearing dark armor, glowing blue lights on his arms. A human. Her heart stopped. Her people said humans were demons, cold, heartless killers. She tried to crawl back, but her arms gave up. The human saw her. He walked slowly toward her. One of his arms was not real, it was made of metal and wires. Moving like a living thing, he knelt beside her. Looking at her face, she closed her eyes, waiting for the end. But it never came. Instead, the human picked her up, gently. He didn't say anything, just looked at her, then looked at the burning sky, and started walking. Thala couldn't understand. Why was he helping her? Did he feel sorry for her, or was he planning something worse? She was too weak to speak, but her mind was awake, full of questions. The human carried her through broken streets, stepping over fire and bodies. She saw other soldiers running, shouting in strange languages, but no one stopped him. They all looked serious, focused. It was like he had a mission. He finally reached a quiet place behind some fallen towers. A small metal door opened in the ground. He stepped inside, and they were swallowed by the dark. Cool air hit her face. She was inside a hidden bunker, filled with machines and lights. Other humans were there, some in armor, some in white suits. One of them gasped, "You brought one of them." The human carrying her just said, "She's not a threat." Then placed her carefully on a medical bed. Thala stared at the metal ceiling above her. It was cold, clean, different from the world she came from. She turned her head and saw the human again. He was removing his helmet. Under it was a tired but calm face. Not scary, not angry. Just human, she whispered. "Why?" He looked at her, confused. She tried again. "Why? Save me." He smiled a little, then answered, "Because no one else did." Those 5 words hit her harder than the blast outside, because he was right. No one ever saved her. Not her family, not her people. Only this strange man from another world, a human with metal arms and a quiet voice. As her eyes closed slowly, she felt something new. Not fear, not pain, but hope. And in her mind, she saw the drawing again, the one where she stood tall. This time, the figure beside her had metal arms and was smiling too. Thala woke up in a bed that didn't smell like dust or rust. The sheets were clean, the air cool, and strange machines beeped softly around her. For a moment, she thought she had died. Maybe this was the afterlife. But then she saw the human. Again, sitting near the door, cleaning his metallic arm with a cloth. The metal shimmered under the light, like it was alive. It moved smoothly. Better than any normal arm. She blinked slowly and whispered, "You're still here." He looked up, smiled gently, and said, "You made it." His name was Elias. He spoke in a slow, calm voice so she could understand. He didn't ask her many questions. He only asked if she was hungry or cold or in pain. She had never met anyone like him, especially not a human. Her people told stories about humans with burning eyes and cruel hearts. But Eliza's eyes were quiet, not full of hate. For 2 days, she rested. Machines checked her body, scanned her brain, and healed her injuries. Her legs were still useless. But here, no one called her broken. No one called her cursed. Elias brought her books with pictures. He told her stories about Earth oceans, forests, and cities that touched the sky. He showed her small things like music from a device. It made her smile, even laugh once. That laugh surprised her. She didn't remember the last time she laughed, maybe when she was 5, before her mother stopped hugging her one night while Elias helped adjust her pillow. She pointed at his metal arm. "Can I have legs like that?" She asked quietly. He looked at her for a moment, then said, "Maybe, maybe." She repeated, eyes wide. "No promises," Elias replied. "But we have the tech. Problem is, it's rare and risky." Her heart raced. This was the first time in her life she heard someone say it was possible, even if it was dangerous. It was still more than she ever had. Who makes them? She asked. Elias stood, wiped his hands, and said, "Come meet someone." He pushed her wheelchair through clean hallways of steel and light. They entered a lab with glowing walls and floating screens. A man with silver glasses and robotic fingers turned around. "This is Dr. Kale, our cybernetic specialist," Elias said. Kale studied her silently, then looked at Elias. "She's not human," Kale said plainly. Thala looked down, feeling the same shame again, but Elias spoke firmly. "She's not useless either." Kale sighed and walked closer. He waved a scanner over her body, frowning at the results. "She's not just paralyzed," he said. Her spine was malformed at birth. No nervous link. No muscle memory. He turned to Thala. "If we try this, and it fails, you could die." "I don't care," Thala whispered, her voice strong for the first time. "I want to walk, even if it's just once." Kale looked surprised, then gave a slow nod. "The cyber legs we need are in the Vault Code Sigma. Military grade. They're not for civilians. Not even for humans." Elias crossed his arms. "Then I'll get them," Kale stared at him. "You know what's guarding that vault?" Elias didn't reply. He just turned and began walking. Thala watched him go, her chest tight. She wanted to stop him, to tell him not to risk his life for her. But she couldn't. Not when he already decided, later that night. Thala sat in the lab alone, watching the stars outside the window. For years, she stared at walls, dreaming of escape. Now she was surrounded by people who didn't know her, but still chose to help. She whispered to herself, "Why are they doing this?" The door opened, and Kale entered, holding a cup of warm liquid. He handed it to her and sat beside her quietly. "You're lucky," Kale said, sipping his drink. "Elias doesn't do this for just anyone." "Why me?" she asked. "I'm no one." Kale looked at her, and for the first time, his face softened. "Because you didn't ask to be saved," he said. "You asked to fight." She held the cup tightly, her hands shaking. It felt like her whole life had led to this moment. A girl once hidden, once forgotten. Now standing at the edge of a new future. One with metal legs and a second chance to live. As she closed her eyes that night, she didn't dream of running. She dreamed of flying, and somewhere, Far away, a human with iron hands was preparing to bring that dream to life. The room was quiet, filled with soft machine sounds and glowing lights. Taylor sat in her wheelchair, heart beating fast. Elias was gone, out there, beyond the steel walls. Risking his life to get something no one dared touch. The Sigma legs. They were not just any legs, they were military-grade cybernetic limbs, made for elite human soldiers. Fast, strong, nearly impossible to break, but they were also locked away. Deep inside an old human base called Vault 7, no one went there anymore, not after the machines inside turned wild. Dr. Kale stood in the lab, tapping buttons on a screen. His long coat swayed as he moved from one table to another. Thala watched him, unsure if she should speak. She finally asked, "Why are those legs locked?" Kale didn't look up because the last person who wore them became a monster. He said calmly, "They were designed for war, not walking." Thala frowned. "But I don't want to fight anyone. I just want to walk." Kale sighed, setting down his tools. He turned to her and said, "You don't understand, do you? These are not like normal prosthetics. They connect to your mind. They become part of you. If your will is weak, they can take over." Delay's eyes dropped to her lap. Her legs hadn't moved since birth. She didn't even know what walking felt like, but she knew one thing: her will wasn't weak. "I've been crawling through life for years," she said softly. "I know pain, silence, and being alone. If that's not strong enough, then maybe nothing is." Kale didn't answer. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, finally, gave a small nod. "You may be right," he said, "but I still need to prepare you." He rolled a chair closer and began explaining the Sigma legs use neurobonding, he said, which means they will connect directly to your brain. You must learn to think like a machine and still stay human. Thala listened carefully. For the next hours, Kale showed her models, brain scans, and energy maps. She learned how the legs worked, how they needed commands from the mind, not from muscles, and how they could increase speed beyond normal limits. But something else caught her attention. Kale showed her an old video of the first test subject, a human soldier named Valen. Valen had once lost both legs in war. But after using the Sigma limbs, he became a legend. Too fast, too deadly, too angry. In the end, the humans had to shut him down. "Is that what I'll become?" she asked, voice shaking. Kale's face was serious. "That depends on you," he said. Suddenly, the lab lights blinked red. An alarm sounded short and sharp. Kale rushed to a panel. A message flashed on the screen. Unauthorized entry detected. Vault 7 breach. Identity. Human name, Elias. Taylor's heart stopped. "He's in," she whispered. Kale cursed under his breath. "He's crazy. That place is crawling with defense bots and unstable tech." Images appeared on the screen. Elias running through a corridor, dodging laser beams, shooting back with a wrist blaster. Smoke and sparks flew around him as machines chased him. Dalla couldn't look away. Every second her heart pounded harder. He wasn't just getting her legs, he was risking everything. She grabbed Kale's hand. "Can't you help him?" Kale hesitated, then nodded. He started typing fast. "Opening a back door into Vault 7's systems. I'll try to disable the sentries for a few seconds," he said. "That's all I can do." On the screen, Elias reached the vault chamber. The Sigma legs were inside a glowing case, floating in blue stasis. Just as he reached out, a huge mechanical beast dropped from the ceiling. A defense unit, shaped like a four-legged spider with glowing red eyes. It screamed with metal jaws and charged at him. Thala held her breath. Elias rolled to the side, fired a shot straight into its eye. It staggered, then jumped again. Faster, Kale pressed the override button. The spider froze for 3 seconds, just enough, Elias smashed the case, grabbed the Sigma legs, and ran. Behind him, the spider woke again, roaring in rage. He sprinted down the corridor, dodging falling debris and chasing bots. He made it to the exit with smoke covering his body. The screen blinked again. Extraction complete. Returning, Thalia smiled. Eyes wet? He did it. He brought them back for her. Kale turned to her, more serious than ever. Now it's your turn, he said. We make the deal now. Thalia looked at the Sigma legs. Now glowing in a sealed container, she nodded slowly. I'm ready, she whispered, for the pain, for the risk, and for the future. And as the door opened to bring in Elias, burned, coughing, but smiling, Thalia knew her life had already changed forever. But the real test was just beginning. The blast door opened with a long hiss. Smoke poured in, followed by the sound of heavy boots. Thalia's eyes widened as Elias stepped into the lab. His armor was scorched, cracked in places, and his right shoulder was bleeding. But in his hands, he held a glowing silver case. Inside, it's a Sigma legs, shining with power. Kale rushed to help him. You're insane, he muttered. That vault was sealed for a reason. Elias dropped the case gently on the table and smiled through bloody lips. She's worth it, he said, then collapsed on a chair. Thalia's heart ached watching him. He looked like a hero out of a storybook, broken but still standing. Kale opened the case, and the room lit up in blue light. The robotic legs floated inside, long and sleek, covered in black and silver plating, with faint blue energy running through their core. These are the last of their kind, Kale whispered. No one makes tech like this anymore. Thalia stared at them, unsure if she was afraid or excited. They didn't look like normal legs. They looked alive. Kale looked at her and said, "We start now, no delays. The neurolinking process must begin before they cool." Elias nodded, still catching his breath. "I'll stay right here," he said. "She needs someone she trusts." Thalia was lifted into a special surgical pod. It felt warm inside, and strange gel covered her lower body. She clenched her fists as cold metal arms moved overhead, scanning her spine. Kale's voice echoed from the control room. "Stay awake, Thalia. This will hurt." A lot. The pain hit her like lightning. Her back arched, her jaw tightened. But she didn't scream. Metal points touched her nerves, and the Sigma legs began to fuse with her body. Images flashed in her mind, crawling across the floor, locked. In rooms, hearing her parents say, "She's a curse being left behind during the war." The cold dirt under her arms as she dragged herself forward, then Elias's hand, reaching into the smoke, lifting her up. She used the pain, gripped it like a weapon. "I'm not weak," she thought. "I'm not broken." Kale's voice came again. "Neuralink, at 42%. Keep going." The legs began to move, twitching as they accepted her brain signals. Her body trembled as steel fused with skin. "Nerve to circuit. Don't pass out," Elias whispered from her side. "You're almost there." Her breathing grew fast. Sweat ran down her face. But she stayed awake, biting her lip until suddenly everything stopped. The room went silent. Even the pain was gone. Thalia blinked and looked down. Her legs were there, long, strong, glowing softly, and no longer dead. They moved when she thought, not when she tried to push them. Kale entered the pod room slowly, holding a small device. "You did it," he said, impressed. "Most people pass out halfway. You're still awake." "That's rare," Elias grinned. "Told you she's tougher than she looks." Kale helped her sit up. "Don't try to walk yet," he warned. "Your brain needs to adjust." But Thalia wasn't listening. She wanted to stand, slowly, with Elias's hand near her for support. She placed her new feet on the floor. They felt heavy, like standing on iron. But they were hers. She pushed down, shaking. Muscles she never had before fired up. And she rose, Wobbly at first, her knees locked, but she was standing. Tears ran down her cheeks as she looked at her reflection in the glass. She was tall now. Balanced, not crawling, not broken anymore. The lab burst into soft clapping. Even Kale gave a small nod. Elias said nothing. Just watched her with quiet pride. She turned to him and whispered, "I'm standing," and he whispered back, "Yes, you are." The next few hours were spent learning how to walk, how to control the speed, how to balance the Sigma legs. Could jump higher, run faster, and lift heavier than normal legs, but they listened only to her mind. Every step became smoother, stronger, more natural. Later that night, Thala stood on the rooftop of the lab. The stars were out, cold and beautiful. She looked up, then down at the world below. She remembered the drawing she once made, a little alien girl standing under. The sky, it used to be just a dream. Now, she was living it. Elias stepped beside her, arms folded. "You did it," he said. Thala nodded. "You saved me." He shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just carried you for a while." She smiled, her eyes full of new light. "I want to do something with this," she said. "Help others like me." Elias looked at her for a long time, then said, "Then let's begin, warrior." And in that moment under the night sky, the girl who once couldn't crawl without pain took her first step toward becoming a legend. The training room was cold and wide. Its walls were made of thick steel, and its floor was hard as rock. Machines moved along the edges, scanning and recording every step, and in the center stood Thala, no longer in a wheelchair, but standing. Tall on her new cybernetic legs, each step she took echoed through the room. The Sigma legs were powerful, too powerful. Sometimes she moved too fast. Other times she couldn't stop. It was like learning to walk again, but this time, one mistake could break bones. Elias stood by her side, arms crossed, watching carefully. He didn't speak much, but when Thala fell, he didn't rush to catch her. Instead, he waited until she stood up on her own. Again, he said simply. Thala gritted her teeth, her knees burned, her back hurt, and sweat ran down her face. Even her cyber legs couldn't help her balance all the time, but she didn't quit. Not now, not ever. She charged forward again. The training dummy lit up red, and she jumped, landing a perfect kick. The dummy's chest dented with a loud bang, but the force sent her flying back, crashing to the floor. "Too much power," Elias said, walking over. "You have to control it. The legs do what you think, so think carefully." Thala groaned, rolling onto her side. Her body hurt even with the new implants. But somewhere deep inside, she loved this pain, because it meant she was alive, not locked in a dark room anymore, not ignored or forgotten. Now she was training to fight, to help, to live. Kale entered the room holding a datapad. "Progress is fast," he said, "but she's still not field ready." "She will be," Elias replied. "Faster than you expect." Kale shook his head. "You humans and your impossible dreams." Later that night, Thala sat in her room alone, her legs off for the night, soaking in repair fluid. Her body ached, but her mind was full. She stared at a small mirror, touching her face. "I don't even recognize myself," she whispered. Once she was small, quiet, a shadow behind closed doors. Now she had scars, burns, and strength in her eyes. Elias knocked and entered, holding a wrapped box. "You earned this," he said. Handing it over, Thala opened it slowly. Inside was a suit, slim, armored, and custom fit to her new body, dark purple, with silver lines and a small human symbol on the chest. "It's yours," Elias said. "We give one to everyone who joins our unit." Thala blinked. "Your unit?" Elias nodded. "We're called the Stray Guard. We help those left behind by orphans, injured, forgotten. You're one of us now. Thala stared at the suit. Her heart beat faster. She remembered being called useless, cursed, trash. Now she was being chosen. I'll wear it, she said with a smile. But don't expect me to follow every rule. Elias laughed. Wouldn't want it any other way. The next day, her final test began. She was taken to the surface where the real world waited. The city was still broken, but the skies were clear. A group of human soldiers stood nearby, waiting for orders. Thala stepped forward. Suit on, legs ready. Her mission: rescue a group of alien children trapped under rubble before the next bombing run. The catch? The area was unstable. No ships, no heavy machines allowed. Only someone fast, small, and precise could make it through. Thala looked at the map, memorized the path. Elias handed her a small comlink. You sure about this? She nodded. I've been trapped before. I know what it's like to wait for someone who never comes. Without another word, she jumped from the ledge and sprinted into the ruins. She moved like a blur, dodging fire, climbing walls, leaping over broken bridges. The Sigma legs moved like they were part of her now. She didn't think she knew. At the collapsed building, she used her strength to lift metal beams and concrete underneath. 5 small children stared at her with wide eyes. One whispered, "You're her." Who? She asked, smiling gently. The alien girl who walks like a machine. The child said. Thala chuckled. No, I walk like myself now. She carried each child out, one by one, just as the bombing started again. But she was faster than the fire. When she returned, covered in dust but smiling, the soldiers clapped. Even Kale, watching from afar, gave a rare nod of approval, and Elias simply said, "You're ready." Thala looked at the children, safe and alive. Then at her legs, humming softly. Then at the open sky. She was no longer the girl who couldn't run. She was the one who ran toward danger. And now, the galaxy would hear her steps. The battlefield was quiet now. Smoke rose from broken towers. Dust floated in the golden light of morning, and standing on top of a ruined wall was Thala. Her eyes scanned the horizon, her new armored legs perfectly still. She wasn't just standing anymore. She had become faster than bullets, stronger than fear, and wherever she walked, hope followed. Behind her, the rescued alien children played near a campfire. Soldiers, both human and alien, watched her with silent respect. They didn't see a weak girl anymore. They saw a warrior. Elias walked over and handed her a small metal badge. It showed the symbol of the Stray Garda, broken sword, and a rising sun. You've earned it, he said. You're not just a member now. You're a symbol. Thala looked at the badge, then at the soldiers around her they had once called her helpless. Now they followed her lead, but things weren't peaceful for long. Far across the city, enemy forces regrouped. A ruthless alien warlord named Korvax was taking control. He believed weakness must be destroyed, especially the cripples and hybrids. And Thala was both. In his eyes, a coded message arrived at base. Korvax had captured a group of human engineers and disabled aliens. He planned to execute them publicly. To show that strength still ruled the stars, Elias turned to Thala. If we don't stop him, hundreds will die. Thala didn't hesitate. Then we fly, she said. Kale arrived with a surprise new attachments for her Sigma legs. Small gravity boosters once used by elite jump troopers. Be careful, he warned. These aren't for beginners. Thala simply smiled. I'm not a beginner anymore, Knight. Fell as the team prepared. Thala stood on top of a tall structure, wind brushing her face. Below her, the enemy base lit up like a cage of fire. Elias spoke into her earpiece. Thala, you don't have to do this alone, she replied, but I'm the only one who can. She crouched, focused her mind, and then launched into the sky. The boosters fired with a low hum, and she flew through the darkness like a falling star. She landed inside the base without a sound. The guards never saw her coming with every step. Her cybernetic legs adjusted to speed, power, and terrain. She became a blur in the shadows, silent, fast, and untouchable inside the prison chamber. The captured humans and aliens sat in silence until the door exploded open and a girl with glowing legs walked in. Eyes full of fire, Korvax turned. "Surprised you?" he spat. "The broken girl who plays soldier." Thala stepped forward. "I'm the girl who never gave up," she said. "And I'm not playing." Korvax roared and charged at her. He was huge, armored, and armed with a plasma blade. But Thala was quicker. She dodged, jumped, and kicked. Her leg struck his chest with the force of a cannon, sending him crashing into a wall. The prisoners watched in shock. They had heard stories. But this was real. The girl who once crawled now danced in battle. Korvax roared again and charged. He slashed wildly, cutting beams and burning the air. Thala ducked, rolled, and struck again, breaking one of his arms. "You will never belong," he growled. "Not to humans or aliens." Thala stood tall. "I don't need to belong," she said. "I lead." Her final kick sent Korvax flying out a glass window. He landed unconscious at the gates, where human troops were waiting. The prisoners ran to her, cheering. One of the alien girls held her hand and whispered, "I used to think people like us were meant to die quietly." Thala knelt down. "Not anymore." She said, "From now on, we run loud." The next morning, the news spread like wildfire. Thala, the iron-legged warrior, had defeated Korvax and saved over 200 lives. Videos of her battle played across networks, and for the first time in history, both humans and aliens celebrated together. Children wore masks shaped like her helmet. Statues were built in places where she once crawled in the dirt. She had become more than a soldier, more than a survivor. She had become a symbol of rebirth, a living answer to the question, can the weak ever become strong? Yes, they can, and sometimes they even fly. Years passed, but the name Thala never faded. It became stronger, whispered in camps, printed on flags, taught in schools. She was no longer just a warrior. She had become a legend. People told stories of the alien girl who couldn't walk, how she was left behind, forgotten, weak, and how she rose on legs of steel, faster than lightning, stronger than fear. Some said she had fire in her bones. Others believed her heart was made of star metal. But the truth was simpler. She never gave up. At the edge of the human-occupied zone, a tall museum stood, the House of Hope, they called it. And at the center, behind a glass wall, was Thala's old wheelchair, beside it. Her first battlesuit scratched, burned, and proud. People from across the galaxy came to see it. A little girl, also born with paralyzed legs, stared at the display. She sat in a floating chair, holding her mother's hand. "Mom," she whispered, "is it true? Did she really fly?" The mother smiled, eyes full of tears. "Yes, my love," she said, "and she flew for all of us." Behind the exhibit stood Thala herself, older now, wiser, her body still part machine, but her eyes still full of the same fire. She didn't wear armor anymore. She wore a diplomat's cloak, because now she was more than a fighter. She was a voice for the forgotten. Thala walked into the open courtyard where leaders waited. Aliens, humans, cyborgs, even former enemies. They stood in silence as she stepped up to the center. No guards, no fear. She didn't need protection anymore. She began to speak, slowly, clearly. "When I was born, my people said I'd never walk. They told my parents I was a waste of food, space, and breath. They locked me away. And still, I dreamed." The crowd listened quietly. Her voice didn't shake. It commanded, Then war came. She continued, and they left me behind like trash, but a human one of the monsters I was taught to fear picked me up. She pointed to a tall man with gray in his beard. Elias stood in the back, still quiet, still proud. That human didn't see my weakness. Thala said, he saw hope. He gave me legs. Yes, but more than that, he gave me a reason to stand. People in the crowd wiped their eyes. Others nodded with silent respect. I stand here today. She said, not just because of technology, but because someone believed I was worth saving. And now, I ask all of you, will you do the same for others? She raised her arm, showing the glowing lines that ran through her cybernetic body. This is not a mark of shame, she said. This is a reminder of the journey. Children clapped first. Then the whole courtyard followed. Flags were raised not of planets, but of unity. The Stray Guard became an official force across sectors, helping refugees, orphans, the injured, and those who had been thrown away by war, and at the front of every mission. Leading with a firm step was Thala. She trained others like her, gave them limbs, but also gave them courage. She built schools for disabled children and centers where no one was ever called broken again. One day, a young reporter asked her, if you could go back, would you choose to be born with working legs? Thala smiled, looking at her reflection in the metal of her chair. No, she said, because this path, though painful, made me who I am. Okay. And I like who I've become. The galaxy remembered her not because she fought, but because she refused to stop. Not when she was left behind. Not when the pain made her scream. Not when the world said she couldn't. She did. Anyway. And so, the legend of Thala grew. Not as a machine, not as a weapon, but as a reminder that even those who crawl today can rise, can run, and if they dare to believe, they can fly.